Hello friends, I am Ann Picaro. I am a weaver and doll collector, and I just moved this summer to a little farm in the foothills of the Appalachian Mountains, and that has meant a lot of really big changes for our family, and I just wanted to be able to document what's going on around here and share some of the experience with you guys. So today I thought I'd bring you around on some of the things that we're up to and what's been going on. I'm joined today by Vasilisa. This is my Himstedt Dolls Lona that was customized by Joshie Bear Huggies. Isn't she amazing? And she's named for the little heroine of the Baba Yaga story. So she's gonna keep us company today. And today is a cool day here. It's in the 50s. It's very clear and the weather is beautiful. And so we're gonna take, in a little bit, we're gonna take a walk around the property and meet the chickens and go for a walk in the woods. Before that, I wanna show you some of the weaving projects I've been working on. And we'll also do some mending of some old clothes. And we'll read a fairy tale. And talk about my doll plans. Almost forgot that. We'll show some of my most recent acquisition that is very exciting to me and very special, and also a doll making project that I'm working on. So I hope you'll join me. Grab a cup of your favorite beverage and maybe some soothing handwork, and let's spend some time together. I'd love to sit with you a while. So the first little thing I want to talk to you about is the weaving that I've been doing lately. You're actually sitting in my little weaving nook in my kitchen. I have this tiny little nook off the side of my kitchen where I keep my vintage Structo loom. I have looms scattered throughout the house, actually. This is just one of them. But I recently finished weaving a set of dish towels. Aren't they glorious? I designed them myself, and I wove them on my 8-shaft countermarch loom. So I just finished hemming these. The project took a lot longer than I was expecting. Hit a lot of snags, but they got done finally, and I'm really beyond happy with them. And I've already started using them, and they absorb so well. If you're a fellow weaver, these are made with Brassard 8-2 cotton, and they're woven at 24 ends per inch. So those are my lovely little towels. And the pattern came from Strickler. It was a Strickler pattern, which I'll put the numbers down below. I did 2 different Strickler patterns, as you can see, a pinwheel and another little one. So that's what I just finished. As for what I've started working on, I've kind of gone from the big to the tiny. A very dear friend sent me a gift this week, and this is a vintage Weave It in the very small size. And this is a friend, Adventure Denali. I'll link her down below. She has a beautiful vlog that she runs. So she sent me this tiny little loom, which I was over the moon about. Look at it. Look at the little bitty loom. So this is Ethel. She's my Swedish countermarch loom. And this is the big baby that wove my towels. And this is the little tiny loom that I'm using right now. I just think it's funny that I went from my biggest loom to my smallest loom. So I was so excited because I had just come back from the thrift store, and I had found this giant, not giant, but it's a big bag full of scraps of needlepoint yarn. You know, the old needlepoint kits that you often find at thrift stores, and then the leftover yarns from those kits, people would usually accumulate. And it's one of my favorite things to find at thrift stores is when I can find a bag of somebody's leftover bits, because I like to embroider with them and do doll work with them. And sometimes if they're the right brand, I even use them for tapestries, but this is not the brand for tapestries. So I bought this bag full of this like riot of colors, and I wanted to make something with it, and I wasn't sure what. And then this little loom arrived, and I made the most wonderful discovery. If you do, these yarns are always cut in lengths. So I've knit with them before, but they are a pain because you're always having so many lengths to cut off. But these lengths, this one feels short, are just the right size to do one square. So I just got this, like, I think on Wednesday maybe, and I've already done all of these little squares. The ends aren't woven in because you use the end to stitch them together. But look at this little patch of cloth. It just makes me so happy. And I feel like two of my loves have just kind of collided, weaving and these random little bags of people's leftovers. Because I love that these are all the leftover bits from somebody's beautiful projects. So it's very special to me. And I'm making these tiny little patches of cloth with them. And I've got 45 patches already, I think. But the colors are just stunning. So I kind of want to weave up all of everything that I can out of here, because some of these yarns you can't do with them. And see how many I have, and then my plan is to put them together into a doll-sized blanket, like a small child-sized blanket. That's my plan anyway. So I thought if you would join me, I would like to weave one little square with you before we go on our little tromp around the farm. So I was going to take you down to the woods on our little farm. There's our chickens. We'll let them out for some foraging time when we come back. We'd love to, our plans were to free range them the whole time, but we have a huge hawk problem. We usually have 4 hawks that circle above this field every day, so what we do is we let them out right before bed for about a couple hours. We'll send the kids out here to let them out and free range the children and the chickens so they get some good wild foraging instincts in and yet are protected from the hawks. So we coming down here to the woods. When Hurricane Ada came, we lost over 35 trees. We never did get a final count, but we kind of quit counting at 35. And there was a lot on our path, so we did a whole day of sawing just to clear the trees off the path. And then we have a chainsaw mill coming. I don't know if you can see, but there's another very long tree. There's another one. But it's really changed our landscape back here to lose so many trees. It was almost unsettling because we hadn't been here very long, but we loved these woods. This is why we bought this property. But our favorite tree, I'm taking you to now, is a beautiful, big, old southern red oak that went down. And I thought we'd go and kind of say goodbye to her. She's really beautiful. The boys have loved playing on her. They come out here all the time and climb and hang out and write poems. So there's another, we had all this across our path. We couldn't get through. But it's really changed, it's just really altered our landscape. We used to be so full of trees back here, especially back here. It's like all of that is just deadfall on the ground from various trees. Here's another, just piles and piles of downed trees. But some of these are, the pines will turn into boards that will cure, and so we can use for fencing or boards for construction projects. We're learning a lot. We had no clue how to do any of this when we moved here, and our neighbors have been very generous in teaching us. Like, this tree was completely downed, but as we cut it, it snapped back up. That was an exciting moment. I hear I wasn't actually there for that. But the tree we lost was up the ravine. We've got this little ravine that runs through the property, a couple of them. And let's come up here. It's like some of the tree fall rolled down the hill last night. But we had to hack our way back in here because it was all covered in brambles, because we're in the good old Appalachians. Alright, getting back in here. And there she is. This is the Grande Dame. We all cried about her falling. And the branches that you can see that are splintering had been straight up when she fell, but some of her branches go, some of them are still up in the air. She was just a massive tree, and then she took down several trees when she came. She took down this one, that one, and then several more on her, and several more on the other side of her came down too. But she crosses the ravine and goes way over there. Her trunk is about 5 feet in diameter. So she is a big, beautiful old lady that we loved very much. And we still love, even as she lies here. We're not going to do anything with her wood. We don't have any kind of equipment that could process her. So she's going to stay out here and become a home and a habitat for animals and a jungle gym for the boys and the neighboring kids. When we first came and saw this tree fallen, hacked our way. We spent a whole day hacking our way through the brambles to get back here, and we all climbed up on top of her, and the boys kind of lay down on her, and my oldest son just lifted his head and he said, "We need to name her, and we need to name her Terabithia, because she is the bridge and she is the place, because she is a bridge over this ravine and she is the magical place." Freedom! So as you can see, we lost a lot of wood, a lot of trees down to Hurricane Eta. And some of that was really emotional for us. But it kind of precipitated some plans that I've been working on for a while. I've always wanted to make my own dolls, and I've tried various medium. I've tried cloth dolls, I've tried clay, and I've enjoyed them, but they haven't felt right. And so I've always wondered, I love working with wood, like because of my weaving and spinning, hand spinning. I do a lot of work with wood tools and restoring old wood tools. Like most of my looms I have rescued and restored, and I just love the process of working with the wood. So I've always had this niggling idea in the back of my head, well, what if I carve my own dolls? But that just felt way too big and way too out of reach and way beyond my skill set. But we lost a few poplars in the storm, and poplar is a really good carving wood. So I have signed up for a puppet carving class. I do have, this is a draft of my technical drawing for my little wooden puppets, and I am really excited to try to make her. Granted, I don't know if I can make her so beautiful and soulful as all of this, but I'm excited to try, and I'm excited to take you on some of that process. This first puppet is going to be made from the linden tree, a basswood, because they recommend it's the easiest wood to carve with, so I'm starting with that. But I'm doing practice pieces on our poplar from our property, so I'm very excited. In other doll news, I had a very special doll come home, which I will show you here. Ta-da! Her wig is looking very David Bowie right now. I need to wash it and tame it, and but this is a Gloomy Dolls heiress. Isn't she beautiful? She was one of 15 dolls cast by the artist, and she actually went up for sale right in the middle of our move. So as you can imagine, I did not have any dolly money at all. So I was very sad because I really loved this doll. And then I found one on the secondhand marketplace. So I am beyond thrilled with this lady. This is my new little love. I'm so excited about her. So I just had to show her off. I'm really excited. Wardrobe. What have I been working on for my wardrobe lately? I've actually been focusing more on mending, especially some of the things that the very first things I put in my wardrobe, like this sweater. It's not one I mended, but this is the very first sweater I ever knit. So it is 14 or 15 years old. I designed it. I'm very proud of it. But a lot of the things that I made 14, 15 years ago are really starting to show wear. So one thing I finished mending this week was the very first shawl I ever designed. And this was made with wools and mohair and hand spun yarns, and the moths got into it at one point in time, and there were more than 10 moth holes, and some of them quite large. So I spent a long time mending. I'm trying to see if I can find, ooh, I must have done a really good job, but they're hard to find. Here's a spot where I mended, right there. I don't even know if you can probably see the difference. There's some woven cloth there instead of knitted cloth. But yeah, so I did that. And then a bigger mending project that I have been working on is my socks. These are the first socks I ever knit, some 15 years ago. Moths got into the top, so I mended that. And then the whole foot was getting threadbare. You can kind of see there's like this puffy area, and that is where I did duplicate stitch over the whole ball of the foot to reinforce it. Because it was such a large area, if I did a woven darning, it wouldn't stretch and my foot would no longer fit in the sock. So I've been having to do this painstaking duplicate stitch. And I've got one here that's almost done. Well, I think I'm about halfway done. I'm going to sit and darn with you while we read a story. And the story is going to be from the Pink Fairy book. Ooh, there went my tiny loom. From the Pink Fairy book by Andrew Lang. This is a series of very old fairy books. And I think today we will read The Goblin and the Grocer while we do some mending. And I want to show you the illustration in here because it is beautiful. This is what the goblin saw in the student's room. This tree with all these beautiful faces coming up out of this book that he is reading. So I'm going to move the camera down, work on darning my sock, and read you a little story. The Goblin and the Grocer by Hans Christian Andersen, translated in the Pink Fairy book, edited by Andrew Lang. There was once a hard-working student who lived in an attic, and he had nothing in the world of his own. There was also a hard-working grocer who lived on the first floor, and he had the whole house for his own. The goblin belonged to him. For every Christmas Eve there was waiting for him at the grocer's a dish of jam with a large lump of butter in the middle. The grocer could afford this, so the goblin stayed in the grocer's shop. And this teaches us a good deal. One evening the student came in by the back door to buy a candle and some cheese. He had no one to send, so he came himself. He got what he wanted, paid for it, and nodded a good evening to the grocer and his wife. She was a woman who could do more than nod. She could talk. When the student had said good night, he suddenly stood still, reading the sheet of paper in which the cheese had been wrapped. It was a leaf torn out of an old book, a book of poetry. "There's more of that over there," said the grocer. "I gave an old woman some coffee for the book. If you like to give me 2pence, you can have the rest." "Yes," said the student, "give me the book instead of the cheese. I can eat my bread without cheese. It would be a shame to leave the book to be torn up. You are a clever and practical man, but about poetry you understand about as much as that old tub over there." And that sounded rude as far as the tub was concerned, but the grocer laughed, and so did the student. It was only said in fun. But the goblin was angry that anyone should dare to say such a thing to a grocer who owned the house and sold the best butter. When it was night, and the shop was shut, and everyone was in bed except the student, the goblin went upstairs and took the grocer's wife's tongue. She did not use it when she was asleep, and on whatever object in the room he put it, that thing began to speak, and spoke out its thoughts and feelings just as well as the lady to whom it belonged. But only one thing at a time could use it, and that was a good thing, or they would have all spoken together. The goblins laid the tongue on the tub in which were the old newspapers. "Is it true," he asked, "that you know nothing about poetry?" "Certainly not," answered the tub. "Poetry is something that is in the papers, and that is frequently cut out. I have a great deal more in me than that student has, and yet I am only a small tub in the grocer's shop." And the goblin put the tongue on the coffee mill, and how it began to grind! He put it on the butter cask and on the till, and all were of the same opinion as the waste paper tub, and one must believe the majority. "Now I will tell the student." And with these words he crept softly up the stairs to the attic where the student lived. There was a light burning, and the goblin peeked through the keyhole and saw that he was reading the torn book that he had bought in the shop. But how bright it was! Out of the book shot a streak of light which grew into a large tree and spread its branches far above the student. Every leaf was alive, and every flower was a beautiful girl's head, some with dark and shining eyes, others with wonderful blue ones. Every fruit was a glittering star, and there was a marvelous music in the student's room. The little goblin had never even dreamt of such a splendid sight, much less seen it. He stood on tiptoe, gazing and gazing till the candle in the attic was put out. The student had blown it out and had gone to bed, but the goblin remained standing outside listening to the music, which very softly and sweetly was now singing the student a lullaby. "I have never seen anything like this," said the goblin. "I never expected this. I must stay with the student." The little fellow thought it over, for he was a sensible goblin, and then he sighed, "The student has no jam." And on that he went down to the grocer again. And it was a good thing that he did go back, for the tub had nearly worn out the tongue. It had read everything that was inside it, on the one side, and was just going to turn itself around and read from the other side when the goblin came in and returned the tongue to its owner. But the whole shop, from the till down to the shavings, from that night changed their opinions of the waste tub, and they looked up to it and had such a faith in it that they were under the impression that when the grocer read the art and drama critiques out of the paper in the evenings, it all came from the tub. But the goblin could no longer sit quietly listening to the wisdom and intellect downstairs. No. As soon as the light shone in the evening from the attic, it seemed to him as though its beams were strong ropes dragging him up, and he had to go and peep through the keyhole. There he felt the sort of feeling we have looking at the great rolling sea in a storm, and he burst into tears. He could not himself say why he wept, but in spite of his tears he felt quite happy. How beautiful it must be to sit under that tree with the student, but that he could not do. He had to content himself with the keyhole and be happy there. There he stood out on the cold landing, the autumn wind blowing through the cracks of the floor. It was cold, very cold, but he first found it out when the light in the attic was put out and the music in the wood died away. And then it froze him, and he crept down again into his warm corner. There it was comfortable and cozy. When Christmas came, and with it the jam, and with the large lump of butter, then the grocer was first with him. But in the middle of the night the goblin awoke, hearing a great noise and knocking against the shutters, people hammering from outside. The watchman was blowing his horn. A great fire had broken out. The whole town was in flames. Was it in the house, or was it at a neighbor's? Where was it? The alarm increased. The grocer's wife was so terrified that she took her gold earrings out of her ears and put them in her pocket in order to save something. The grocer seized his account books, and the maid her black silk dress. Everyone wanted to save his most valuable possession, and so did the goblin. And in a few leaps he was up the stairs and in the student's room. The student was standing quietly by the open window, looking at the fire that was burning in the neighbor's house just opposite. The goblin seized the book lying on the table, put it in his red cap, and clasped it with both hands. The best treasure in the house was saved, and he climbed out onto the roof with it, onto the chimney. And there he sat, lighted up by the flames from the burning house opposite, both hands holding tightly on his red cap in which lay the treasure. And now he knew what his heart really valued most, to whom he really belonged. But when the fire was put out and the goblin thought it over, then... "I will divide myself between the two," he said. "I cannot quite give up the grocer because of the jam." And it is the same with us. We also cannot quite give up the grocer because of the jam. Thank you so much for spending some time with me today. I really enjoyed getting to sit and chat with you and walk around the property with you. If you enjoyed it as well, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe. Maybe share the word. I also need to give a big thank you to my family, to my husband for filming some of the things that I clearly could not have filmed myself, and to my two boys. They've both been learning ukulele during this lockdown, and they accepted my cash commission to create some original music and record it for this podcast vlog thing. We really should come up with a name for it. Whatever it is, I enjoyed doing it with you. Thank you so much. Goodbye.